In this video, I'm going to write and explore a sample introduction paragraph that you would be wise to learn and remember and reuse yourselves in your Blood Brothers essay question for Literature Paper 2, Section A. If you use this introduction, or at least use this introduction to inspire your own, you will notice that it gets at least 5 aspects of our golden knowledge into the introduction, which will set you off on the right foot and hopefully start your examiner's eyes looking at the top end of the mark scheme. You would need to try and revisit elements of this gold further throughout your answer, because the golden knowledge is applicable to every question that you could possibly ask. But this introduction will certainly get you started, and then you can then explore it and relate it to the question further on in your essay. Okay, so remember, with Blood Brothers you get a choice of 2 questions, so you need to spend 5 minutes or so exploring each of those questions, having a good think, which one will you choose, what do you know best. Remember, the questions will either mention characters or they will mention themes, so you need to look at those themes, look at those characters and think about what you know, what those characters do or how the themes are represented, and having a little think about examples from the rest of the play that you could explore. Once you've picked a question, then you can use this introduction to get your essay started. So we're going to start off, always, whether it's for A Christmas Carol or Shakespeare or Blood Brothers, or indeed the poetry as well, by making reference to the author. So we can start off by saying Russell's post-modern drama provides a social critique of class division in 1970s Britain. Now, don't worry about some of this terminology. At the end of this video, once I've written the paragraph, I'll go back and I'll explore this further with you. But Russell's postmodern drama provides a social critique of class division in 1970s Britain. Russell, never call him Willie, Russell, as a dramatist, he didn't write prose, he didn't write poetry, he wrote drama, so he's a dramatist, comma, relies on classical tragic structure to present the character's demise. Okay, so making references to the classical structure of the play, which is similar to Romeo and Juliet actually, in that the protagonists die at the end. Demise means die. Okay, so interestingly, Russell's intentions are to force his audience to consider how nature and nurture influence outcomes for individuals in society, and the impact and unfairness of the British class system. Russell uses the characterization of, and at this point you would mention the character that is mentioned in the question, whether that be Linda, Mickey, Eddie or whoever, you can put that name there. So Russell uses the characterization of that character to present realistic characters to the audience. Okay, when you think about effects, so to the audience, so that they are emotionally invested, sounds fancy, emotionally invested in the plot with pathos. Okay, so this is actually just shy of 100 words, okay, just shy of 100 words, and provides you with a very, very strong foundation to then go into the specifics of the question. If we explore this in a little bit more detail, okay, and if I identify the golden knowledge for you, we've got postmodern drama that is identified in your paragraph. Remember, postmodernism was the style of writing that many dramatists were using in and around this time. Willie Russell, most notably for you, and it really it brings in ideas to do with Brecht theatre that was deliberately accessible for the working classes and that dealt with real life, real world problems that the audience would have experienced themselves. So it's gritty, it's realistic, it's true to life in the way that Blood Brothers is. Family issues and issues to do with poverty and issues to do with class, the things that real world, real life people deal with. Okay, the fact that it's a social critique is also a golden thread. A social critique, a criticism. If you think about a critic, a theatre critic, a film critic, a food critic, whatever it might be, a critic's job is to ask questions and to give their opinion and to point out flaws and problems. And basically that's what Willie Russell is doing, in the same way that that's what Dickens was doing in A Christmas Carol. That's what Dickens is doing in Blood Brothers. Willie Russell knows that there is a problem with the class system in the 1970s. He experienced that himself, and he uses the plot and the characters of Blood Brothers to show this. So it is a social critique, a critique of society. Okay. When we talk about tragic structure, this is important because it brings in ideas from your studies of Romeo and Juliet to do with Aristotle, the idea of hamartia or fatal flaws. You could explore that later on in your essay. Eddie, Mickey certainly have tragic flaws or hamartia, but we won't put that in an introduction. But it is a tragic structure. Blood Brothers is a tragic play. It ends with the death of the protagonists because of flaws in their personality. It could be argued that it is a classical Greek tragedy, so a tragic structure to present the character's demise. Okay. Within this, we also explore ideas, or at least you hint at ideas to your examiner, to do with nature versus nurture. This was really popular in the 1970s because of a sociologist called B.F. Skinner. You should have studied this in your lessons with your teachers. And it brings into question whether or not we fulfill our abilities because of the environment that we are in or because of our genetic makeup. This idea of nature, so what is inbuilt within us, or nurture, the environment that we are in. And Willie Russell provides this idea on stage with two genetically identical people who are separated at birth and brought up in completely contrasting environments, and we see that actually they are similar in many ways and they are different in many ways as well. It's about achieving your ambitions and dreams and whether or not the class system limits people of equal ability because of its unfairness. So the idea of nature and nurture, you are hinting at that you know it, and you could then explore that later on in your answer. The final piece of gold in here is this idea of characterization. By using the phrase characterization, you are showing your examiner that you understand that these characters are constructs, and that just means that they're created, that they are not real, that they are characters, not people. Characterization, in particular for Willie Russell, consisted of costume and accent and dialect of the characters, and the props that they use to make those characters seem realistic. Remember, characters like Mrs. Johnston and Mrs. Lyons will have worn similar, well, they have costumes, but they wear similar clothes to many audience members, and they may recall similar memories as well. That adds a sense of nostalgia and allows the audience to relate to the characters, which makes them real. And remember, characterization is the process of making characters come to life. Just to point out some other words that we've used in this introduction that will impress your examiner: words like dramatist, words like characters, and words like audience as well. By using words like dramatist, characters and audience, you are showing your examiner that you understand that this play is drama, and that is particularly important for the highest marks. So what I would strongly suggest is that you learn this paragraph, that you write it out and learn it, and write it out and learn it, and you can use this to start off any question. And just so that I can end this video with a clearer version so that you can see my scroll, you can freeze this on your phones or PCs, and you can learn this and rewrite it out and use it. Okay, good luck, get revising, and I hope this serves you well.